Love has a funny way of making us blind to the obvious. She watches him smile, touch her hand, promise forever, and never once questions what's beneath the surface. He's charming, he's attentive, he's perfect, and she has no idea she's falling for something that isn't even human. This isn't about red flags or toxic relationships. This is about something far more literal. He's a demon. Not metaphorically, actually. And she's completely oblivious. The thing about demons is they don't show up with horns and pitchforks anymore. That went out of style centuries ago. Modern deception requires modern tactics. They've learned to blend in, to mimic human behavior so perfectly that even the sharpest minds can't tell the difference. They study us, they adapt, and when they want something, they become exactly what we're looking for. She met him at a coffee shop. Classic story. He spilled her drink, apologized profusely, insisted on buying her another. They talked for 3 hours. She remembers thinking how easy it felt, how natural, like they'd known each other for years. That's the first trick. Demons don't do awkward small talk. They skip straight to connection because they already know everything about you, your fears, your desires, the exact words that'll make you feel seen. He texted her that night. Not too soon, not too late. Asked about her day, remembered details from their conversation, made her laugh. Every move calculated, but she felt like she'd found someone who actually cared. That's the thing about supernatural manipulation versus human manipulation. Humans get sloppy. They slip up. They show their hand. Demons never do. 3 weeks in, she introduced him to her friends. They loved him. Of course they did. He was attentive, funny, respectful, asked questions, remembered names. Her best friend pulled her aside and said she'd never seen her this happy. And she was happy, genuinely, because everything felt right in a way nothing ever had before. But here's what she didn't notice. He never talked about his past. Every story he told existed in a vacuum. No childhood memories, no embarrassing high school moments, no mention of family or old friends. When she asked, he deflected with charm, made a joke, kissed her forehead, changed the subject so smoothly she forgot she'd even been curious. Demons don't have histories. They have cover stories. And the best cover stories are the ones that are never fully told. She didn't notice other things either. The way he never seemed tired. How he always knew when she was upset before she said anything. The fact that he never got sick, never complained about pain, never seemed affected by weather or stress or any of the small human inconveniences that wear the rest of us down. You'd think these would be obvious signs, but love makes us explain away the inexplicable. She told herself he was just healthy, just intuitive, just one of those people who had their life together. We find comfort in rational explanations, even when nothing about the situation is actually rational. 6 months in, things started shifting. Subtle at first. He'd make comments that felt slightly off, observations about people that were too accurate, predictions about situations that always came true. She'd laugh it off, call him psychic. He'd smile in a way that didn't quite reach his eyes and say something like, "You have no idea." She thought it was flirting. It wasn't. The truth is, demons don't pursue relationships for love. They do it for access to human emotion, human energy, human souls. They feed on what we feel, and the deeper the connection, the more potent the source. She was giving him everything willingly, never realizing she was being drained in ways that had nothing to do with emotional exhaustion. Her friends started noticing changes. She seemed distracted, distant, like part of her was somewhere else. When they asked if everything was okay, she insisted she'd never been better. And she believed it. That's the scariest part. The victim never sees the trap until it's already closed. But something was about to happen that would crack the perfect illusion he'd built. Something he couldn't control or explain away with charm and misdirection. And when it did, she'd have to decide whether to accept the impossible truth or keep lying to herself. Because denial is powerful. But so is survival. It happened on a Tuesday night. They were at her apartment, watching some forgettable movie, her head on his chest. Normal, comfortable. Then her phone rang. Her mom. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. The conversation lasted maybe 2 minutes. Casual check-in, nothing important. But when she hung up and looked at him, his expression had changed. Not much, just enough. Like a mask had slipped for half a second before sliding back into place. She asked if he was okay. He said he was fine, but his voice had an edge she'd never heard before. Sharp, almost irritated. She pressed, asked again, and that's when he said it. "Your mother doesn't trust me." "She hasn't from the beginning." She laughed, told him that was ridiculous. Her mom had never even met him. He stared at her with eyes that suddenly felt too intense, too knowing. "I don't need to meet her to know what she thinks." The room got cold, not metaphorically, actually cold. She pulled a blanket around herself and made some joke about the heating. He didn't laugh, just kept watching her with that same unsettling focus. Then he stood up, walked to the window, and said something that made her blood freeze. "You should listen to her instincts. Mothers always know when something's wrong with the person their daughter brings home." She asked what he meant. He turned around, and for just a moment, his face looked different. Older, sharper, like she was seeing through a filter that had always been there but never noticed. Then it was gone. Back to the man she knew, the man she loved. He smiled, apologized, said he was just tired, stressed about work. She wanted to believe him, desperately. But something had cracked, and once you see a crack, you can't unsee it. That night, after he left, she couldn't sleep, kept replaying the moment. The cold, the look in his eyes, the way he knew things he shouldn't. She grabbed her laptop and did something she'd never done before. Searched his name, every variation she could think of. Social media, public records, anything. Nothing came up, not a single trace. No old accounts, no tagged photos, no digital footprint whatsoever. In the modern world, that's not just unusual, it's impossible. She told herself there had to be an explanation. Maybe he valued privacy. Maybe he'd deleted everything. But the rational part of her brain kept whispering that none of this made sense, that it never had. She spent the next 3 days watching him differently, paying attention to the details she'd ignored. And once she started looking, she couldn't stop seeing. The way he never blinked as often as normal people. How his skin was always the same temperature regardless of environment. The fact that mirrors seemed to reflect him just slightly wrong, like the image was delayed by a fraction of a second. She was losing her mind. Had to be, because the alternative was accepting something impossible. On Friday, she confronted him, asked him directly who he really was. He didn't deflect this time, didn't charm his way out, just looked at her with something that might have been sadness or might have been pity and said, "You already know." She wanted to run, scream, something. But she just stood there as he explained. Not in detail. Demons don't do full confessions, but enough. Enough to confirm that everything she'd felt, every instinct she'd ignored, had been right. He told her he'd never lied about his feelings, that what they had was real within the constraints of what he was capable of. Like that made it better. Like genuine affection from something inhuman was supposed to be comforting. She asked him to leave. He did. No argument, no fight. Just walked out like he'd always known this moment would come. And maybe he had. Maybe that was part of it too, the inevitability. She never saw him again. No calls, no texts. He vanished as completely as he'd appeared. Sometimes she wonders if any of it actually happened, if maybe she imagined the whole thing. But then she looks at photos from those 6 months and sees it, that slight wrongness in his reflection, the shadow that falls just a bit differently than it should. The truth was always there. She just hadn't been ready to see it. Most of us never are. We build our realities around what we want to believe. She wanted love, so she saw love. Ignored every warning sign because acknowledging them meant facing something too terrifying to accept. The question isn't whether demons exist. It's whether we'd recognize them if they did. And based on how easily we overlook the impossible when it's wrapped in everything we've been searching for, the answer is probably no.